Hey everyone, Effie here. I am back with another video. However, this is a card that I made for our spring 2018 release, and I did not get around to editing and posting the video in time for the release, but I wanted to post it today because I want to show you exactly how these stamps look as they are stamped out. So let's get started. I placed the first layer, solid layers, onto my A2 size panel, and then I just picked them all up with the door of my Misti and stamped them at the same time using my Peach Blossom dye ink. Next, I took that smallest stamp and I just manually stamped them to cover the rest of the areas on my panel. Next, I took the second layer stamp for this smaller image and I stamped them individually using my Misti, using our Coralline hybrid ink. You can manually stamp all the layers just using an acrylic block, but I did use my Misti for this project just because if I manually stamp it, my head kind of gets in the way of the shot. So for the purpose of this video, I do use my Misti to help me stamp. So once I finish stamping the second layer for this beautiful fish, I just position the third layer stamp and I again use my Misti to stamp this layer in our Coral Cavern ink. This is a dye ink and it is a really nice addition to our Coral collection layering inks. Our Coral collection inks are 3 layering inks: Peach Blossom, Coralline Hybrid, and Spice Chai dye ink. But instead of using the Spice Chai, I use my Coral Cavern, which is a really nice third layer. Now there are some layers that I actually double stamp, so this is where the Misti or stamp positioning tool that you might have comes in handy. So there are a few layers that I do stamp twice just because I want a little bit more definition or solid coverage to that specific layer. To save time for the 2 larger fish on my panel, I stamp the coordinating layers in the same pass, and this is because if I'm stamping the same layer in the same color, it's just easier to get them onto the Misti door at the same time and stamp them at the same time. So after I finish stamping the layers in the Coralline and the last layer in Coral Cavern dye inks, I stamped the little fish eyeball using our Noir dye ink. Then I cut out 2 paper masks for these 2 fish on the bottom of my panel, and I just literally stamped the images onto some printer paper and fussy cut them out. And I temporarily adhered them over the images and stamped a few of the seaweed looking, I guess, ferns or foliage onto the panel using our Lofty Mint. After I finished stamping the underground foliage, I peeled off the mass and I stamped the sentiment in our bright emerald dye ink. Next, I trimmed my stamp panel just a tiny bit on the left and right sides. Then I took our rose gold burnished foil tape and I added just a little bit to the edges of my A2 side folding panel, but I made sure to leave a little bit of white space at the edges of my card base so that when I mount my stamp panel, you have a little bit of the rose gold foil showing and a little bit of that white card base showing. Lastly, I embellished my card using our clear rhinestones, and these rhinestones look great on an underwater scene because they look like air bubbles. My card is now complete. I enjoyed stamping these lovely, beautiful bettas. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.